We left off was we entered in our transaction through the check register. So here we were able to do it here. And we also got to split the payment, not via like half a payment with cash and half a payment with a check. We actually looked into actually splitting the payment via location. So based on the location, so we're splitting the expense between two different locations, which is another way if you can split the payment. So now we're going to be looking into writing a check. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the home page. Okay. So again, that is not the home page. So let me go ahead and close this all out and get to the home page there away. So here's the home page, okay? So you have either to write a check here, or you can actually go up to the top under banking, and you'll be able to write a check here, okay? So again, that's two ways you can write a check, all right? You can also write a check by paying your bill, but before we do that, I want you to see the difference between when we actually pay our bills and when we just write a random check. So okay, so the next exercise we have here is to write a check. All right. Now the first thing that we need to verify in the verify is which place we're writing this check and where is the money coming out of. Now it's pretty straightforward that all checks come directly out of your checking account. However, you can take it out of your money market and you can take it out of your savings, but it will, I believe, if you take it out of your savings, they charge you a certain percentage for taking money out of your savings or writing a check from your savings. Now, I know that you can do transfers where you transfer from savings to your checkings just to make sure that you have enough money to pay. But for QuickBooks, it gives you those options. But in real life, it's not as easy. So generally, checks will just come directly out of your checking account from your bank. And every check that we write, the one assumption that we have to make is they're not paid yet. QuickBooks will record it as being paid already, but the one thing that we need to do is we need to print those checks out, we need to sign those checks, and then we need to mail them out. So remember, just because we write a check on QuickBooks, that doesn't mean we guarantee that we actually paid our vendor or whoever that we owe money to. Okay, so here we're going to go ahead and write a check. So let's go look at our example. So here it says we're going to write a check and we're going to write it to, let me see. Okay, so we're going to write, all right. So here we're going to make sure that we write the check on February 8th. Which in this case, because I already wrote my last check was on the 25th of February, I'm just going to continue with that. So I'm going to say I wrote it on the 28th of February, okay? And we're going to make we're going to write this check out to Orlando Properties, and we're going to write it for, where's the amount? We're going to write it for $3,200. Okay, so from here, again, who am I going to be writing this check to? So let's go ahead and fill out the payee information. It's going to be Orlando Properties, right? I typed it in. Once I do that, boom, all my information will pop up. Now, because Orlando Properties, okay, I'll show you this later on. I believe I forgot which chapter it is, but this is a memorized report, meaning every time we tap into a Orlando Properties, it's going to automatically associate with us that we need to pay rent, okay? So again, remember when we set up our vendors, it asked us to set up an account that's going to link to automatically. And this is exactly an example. We put in Orlando Properties. It's going to automatically assume that we're paying rent to this vendor. So again, we're going to be toggling the date. Here, we're going to write the date as February 20. Okay, so this one says 25th, but I'm going to change it to 28. Okay, just so then the check numbers are valid. Okay, so this one says it's 332. That is fine. Again, this is assuming that the minute you finish this, writing this check, it's gonna print out automatically. We want to make sure that we want to print this later, and when we print this check later, which it's not allowing. Okay, that when we print this check later, what's gonna happen is it's not gonna assign the number right away. Again, we talked briefly about this. The day that you print, or whenever you're ready to print it, you can write a whole bunch of checks so then you have it all lined up correct in order, right? And if you save it to print later, it will automatically assign a check number when you print it. Okay? If you're gonna do it right now because today's just one day, I'm gonna print it now. Might as well get it done and over with. Then it will assign you the number right then and there. So the minute you press save and close, it's going to pop up the window to print the check. Okay. So you want to make sure that I select print those checks later. Now the amount is for $3,200. All right. So once I do that, it's gonna populate down here. That my check is going to be $3,200. Wait, hold on. There you go. Then it popped up here that my check is going to be for $3,200. All right. And is there something I need to put in the memo? I think it's just rent expense. Oops, wrong one. Yeah, enter rent expense in the memo, and then enter rent expense in the account below, which is it automatically filled it in for you. And then it's going to say make sure that you write that this rent is specifically for the San Jose location. So, all right. Let me go ahead and fill that information in. So here, rent expense for San Jose. All right. Here again, if we have the column for it, which it should automatically pop up here, here's our class, and we're going to recognize that this is for the San Jose location. Okay, so that means this expense right here is going to automatically accumulate under the class of San Jose. All right, once I've done that, and I verified everything's correct, then I'm going to go ahead and click save and close. All right, now if you look carefully at the buttons below, why is it that I chose the save and close versus save and new? Save and close means you're done with this transaction. You're not going to write a check anymore. If I were to click save and new, it would close out and verify that transaction, and then it will populate a new form for you to fill out to create a new check. So that's always good that if you are just paying bills as of right now, just paying every single bill that you have, then you can go ahead and click save and new and just keep putting in more and more and more checks. Now, if you're just done with that transaction for the day, boom, just click save and close. Okay? So now that we've entered that in, okay, so again, now we have a check pending in our print checks window. Okay? And again, you will not be assigned a check number until you print that number. Okay, so now managing accounts payable. Okay, so remember there are two ways you can enter in your accounts payable, right? You can either enter it in through the enter bills icon, or you can create a purchase order, which it will in terms turn into a bill once you receive your inventory. Okay, but obviously the purchase orders is kind of strictly for only inventory items, so make sure that you're careful there. But here it's going to ask you to enter a bill in. Okay, so cool. We're going to enter a bill in via using the enter bills option. Okay, so here, pretty straightforward. We have actually quite a few ways to where we can enter a bill. Okay, so this is where I have six. There's actually 7, but I'll teach you the 7th one later on. But there are 6 total ways you can actually enter a bill when you're entering a bill into the transaction. So obviously the first one is going to be your home page. It's pretty straightforward. It's right here. Okay, so that's one way. Second way is going to be entering it through the vendor's center. So again, you can enter the vendor center how? You have the home page, you have the icon bar, and you have at the top. You can go to the vendor center there. At the very top, when you actually click vendors, you can actually click enter bills. Okay? So there's one way, there's a third way, fourth way right here. Okay? If I go to the vendor center, right, I can go to the very top where it says new transactions, and I can enter a bill that way, right? If I know who my vendor is specifically, I can, let's say, I'm entering a bill from, who does it say I'm entering a bill from? Is it Ace Supply? Let me see. Ace Supply. Okay, good. So if I'm entering a bill via Ace Supply, I can select Ace Supply and I can right click them and I can enter my bill that way. Where is enter bill? Enter bill. Enter bill, right? If I just select Ace Supply, right? Their information's on the right side. I can go all the way to the bottom here where it says manage transactions. And I can enter a bill that way by clicking bills. Okay? So let's rewind. What are the ways to enter a bill?
Homepage.
Homepage, good.
And vendors.
Vendors where? Vendors where?
On the left side.
Okay, so icon bar. This is the icon bar.
Yeah.
Okay. Where else?
And is it new transaction?
New transactions at the top, correct.
Yeah.
If you know who your vendor is, you can right click them.
You can right click and then
Enter bills.
Enter bills. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What else? And then what's another way?
The menu, so it's called the menu bar.
The menu bar, that's correct. You could go here, enter bills. And then lastly, what was the last one? Manage transactions. Okay, make sure that you're on the correct vendor before you can select manage transactions. Okay, and you can enter your bill that way. There is one more, but I will show you later on. Okay. So here we already know Ace Supply is going to be the vendor. So I'm just going to go ahead and click them. And I'm going to go ahead and click enter bill. Okay. Since I already know I'm receiving a bill from them. And what's going to happen is that their name is going to be here. And oops, I press enter. Okay. So here it automatically fills in all my information for me. Now it's going to associate, because I set up my vendor that way, that I'm gonna be buying office supplies from Ace Supply. So let's go ahead and look at let's look at our book and let's see what it's asked us to do. Okay, so we're gonna be entering a bill. We're gonna buy office supplies, but what specifically are we actually buying? Okay, so it says here we're gonna enter the date as February 8th. Again, we were not going to use that date, so we're going to use February. We're going to actually use March 1st. Okay. And it says enter 2085 in the reference number. So again, a reference number is kind of similar to a invoice number. Oops, sorry. Let's go ahead and do that. So first, the date is going to be, I want to make it on March 1st. So I made it March 1st. My reference number, is it 2085 or 2035? I think it's 85. Okay. And then it's going to ask us, let me see. Yeah, 2085 is correct. All right. Then it's going to ask us to enter $360 in the amount field. Okay. And then skip to the bill due, and it should automatically populate for us because we saved it in our information when we set up Ace Supply, that it should be 2% 10 net 30. Okay, so that's the terms that they're automatically going to give us. Okay. And then we're going to enter the photo materials for Jerry Perez in the job field. Okay. All right. So we're actually buying photo materials for Jerry? Okay, so here is our vendor. Okay, so the amount is going to be for $360. Okay. So again, our date was, I typed in the 11th. Oh, wait, no. Okay, so I typed in the 1st. So in order to meet the discount period, so here is what's cool about QuickBooks. You enter this date in, it's going to automatically tell you when the discount period is, and it's going to automatically tell you when the bill is due. So obviously, it's overdue, but, this is just for the sake of the example. So here, again, I entered the bill on the 1st, right? And because I have terms set for me already, which is 2% 10 net 30, this is the discount date. And then this is going to appear as the actual date that it's due. The whole entire thing is due. Now, the memo is going to be photo materials for Jerry Perez. Okay. And it's going to be for $360. Okay. So the memo, photo materials. And then, so the customer / job. So I'm actually buying this materials for a specific person. And it was for Perez Jerry. All right. And then you're going to see this little option here. Is it going to be billable? Yes. So the minute I receive this, or the minute I pay this, it's going to automatically bill Mr. Perez for this specific order that I am receiving. So let's see what else. And what class does he belong to? I think he belongs to Walnut Creek, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Okay, so we need to enter a cost of goods sold account in the column of the expenses tab, and this okay. And then we're gonna press tab to accept $360 already into the thing. enter photo materials in the memo. Okay, so hold on. Instead of getting office supplies, for some reason we need to change the account to cost of goods sold. So let's go ahead and let's revise that. So instead of office supplies here, we want it to title cost of goods sold. Because technically, we aren't even buying these office supplies. We're buying it for somebody. Okay? So in our terms, we actually sold this item. Right. And let's see, memo, the cost of, okay, blah, okay. And then let's see where it says to Perez Jerry. And does he have a class? Yes, Walnut Creek. I was right. Okay, so here, Walnut Creek, and then save and close. So here, I'm going to make sure that I indicate that the class is Walnut Creek. So in case you can't see or anything like that, you can go ahead and move these little icons. And I want Walnut Creek. Okay. All right. Everything looks good. We have all his information down. The date is good. Our memos are good. And our expense is good. Go ahead and save and close. And you should get the beep of approval. All right. So I know if I were to go down here in my field, so if I click a supply, I just entered a bill right here that was here for $20.85, right? And if I double click it, I get to see what the bill looks like. And have I paid it yet? No, I have not. And I'm going to go ahead and click that out. So that's the cool thing, that it's going to automatically populate all your transactions the minute it happens. Okay? Okay, so now let's see what is next. All right, so now we're going to be accounting documents. Now, again, when you receive a bill, you can actually attach it right here. So again, we are trying to move from paper to more online material. So when you do get the bill, you can scan it in and you can attach it to this actual bill. Okay, so again, you can attach any documents in regards to either the bill, customer information such as business cards, anything like that you think is pertinent, or anything that's important for each person on an individual case. Now, the next is going to be, we're going to view our unpaid bills. Okay, so we just noticed that we just entered a bill, correct? Now, we're going to be looking into reports. And what reports can do for you is there are, I believe there's a lot of reports that you can do for, especially for anything that you've entered into QuickBooks. So in this case, it wants to ask me to see all my bills that I have for that I haven't paid yet. So I'm going to go ahead and go to reports, and I'm going to go to vendors and payables, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and let's go ahead and look at our unpaid bills. Okay. So once that window pops up, here it's automatically toggled to the dates. Again, I believe it asks for February. So I can go ahead and toggle it right here so I can filter it out. But as you can see, I have a few things that I've entered in previously. So here's the most recent one that I've created on March 1st. And then here's another one that I still owe for Wong and Son video. They wrote me this bill back in January. So that one is still overdue. It's still unpaid. Okay. Again, you can toggle the dates now because you need to also be aware of when you actually enter the information in. So I believe it asks you to filter for February. If I were to filter it out in February, there'd be nothing here because I changed my date. So again, it's also for you to also be aware of what you have that month, so you can toggle it here. Okay, so here I have 2 bills unpaid. All right. Now I'm going to actually pay those bills. Okay, so here you have pretty much the same amount of options in order to pay your bill. Okay, so again, if we look at our line of transaction here, once we enter our bill, the next thing we need to do is we need to pay it. Okay, so how do we pay our bills? Pretty straightforward. Again, it's the same way that you can enter in a bill. If you can enter in a bill, well, then you can also pay the bill. So there are actually a total of 8 ways you can actually pay your bill. Now here is one way, right? The home page. Okay. Going to the vendor center is going to be the second and third way. Okay, so we have the icon bar, and we also have the menu bar to get to the vendor center. And then another thing is, if you go to the vendor on the menu list, if you can enter your bills, you can very well pay them as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the vendor center. And here we've already looked at the same ways that we can pay our bill, right? If you can enter the bill, you can pay it. Okay, so that's what's really cool, is that everything that matches or are in line with each other. Typically, you'd be able to find it the same way too. So, can anyone tell me the other two? What are the other 2 ways you could pay a bill?
Manage transactions at the bottom.
Man-
Click on.
Manage transactions at the bottom, and this one is just going to say bill payment. Instead of pay bill, it's bill payment. What else?
New transactions.
New transactions at the one at the top. Good. Okay. So again, if we know exactly who we're going to pay, so let's say, for example, Wong and Son, I have a balance overdue. If I know I need to pay them, I can just right click them. And if I have the ability to enter the bill, I have the capability to pay the bill as well. Okay. Now let's go back to Ace Supply. So we just have this bill right here. Here is another way to pay the bill. You can double click it, and once you see your bill, at the very top, you have your pay bill option right here. Okay? Make sure you know all of those ways. Okay? It may ask you to do homepage. It may ask you to do it through the menu bar. It may even very well ask you to open up a bill and to click the pay bill option right here. Okay, so there are lots and lots of ways to explore and enter in a transaction. Now, for this case, I'm going to go back to my home page because this one, I'm actually going to be paying multiple bills at one time. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the home page, and I'm going to go ahead and click that pay bill window. Now, once I do that, it's going to populate all the bills that I have yet to pay. So here, I guess I do have one on February. I thought this was on January. Oh, never mind. It was sent to me in January, but it's due in February. So here, I'm going to go ahead and look at this. Now, it's going to ask me, do I want to show all of them, or do I want to show the ones that are due before a specific date? Now, if I were to click do a specific date, I can go ahead and click in, well, do I have something due on March I don't know, March 1st? No. Do I have something due in February 12th, February 25th? No. But in this case, I don't want to see what I have due. I want to see every single transaction. Okay, so here I have Wong and Sun, and I have Ace Supply. Okay,
I
and
have a
then yes,
sorry for interrupting you, but you said that QuickBook doesn't pay checks, right? But it
it.
pays bills. I'm confused on that.
Okay, so let me finish this transaction, and I can go ahead and explain that because it does. Yes, you can pay either with cash, or you can actually pay with bills. Now, what I'm showing you is utilizing the pay bills option, okay? And then when we go to our check register, it will make more clear sense what I mean about by that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, so here I think it gives us the option to pay both of them right now. So here my check is right now, it's worth $0 because I haven't even entered anything in yet. But if I were to select, okay, well, this guy is way overdue, so I need to pay him. And this guy, I should pay him soon. But then again, it's based on if you have enough to pay him. Now, because they were generous and didn't charge us for this, it's just going to be, they're not going to charge us any late fees for that. So it's still going to be $142. And then we are attaching our $360. Now down here is where you're going to actually start start creating whether the date that you want to pay them. So here the payment date is going to be on the on that date. I'm going to change that just because I have Ace Supplies, right? They're due on the 31st. I'm going to say I made a payment on the 25th of March. So then that way I exceeded the discount period because that's another concept that I may not have actually time to show you, but it will make a lot more sense when we dive into doing customers, because customers, it's the same thing. So I want you to read that portion on credit memos and what you can do with those. So I'm gonna go ahead and just write that I wrote this check on March 25th, okay? And I'm gonna write a check. So I'm not gonna use a credit card, I'm gonna write a check. And it's going to be printed. I do not want to select that. I want to assign check number later. Okay, so to be printed is to print later, okay? If I wanted to, I can assign the check number right now. But I'm going to print it later. I'm going to save it for later, okay? So again, you're going to be looking at terms. Terms is what is what I'm talking to you guys about, because they gave us a discount period, right? If we paid within 10 days for Ace Supply, if we paid in 10 days, they would have automatically discounted us 2%. Now, we've already missed the discount period. So there is no setting a discount here, okay? If for any reason we decided to return something to them, let's say the product was broken, generally they would actually send us a credit memo that we can apply. Now, I believe there is one credit memo that we can apply. It's for $25 or something like that, but in this case, I don't see it. It's not populating because I guess the date is a little over too much right there, so we don't have any credit memos to apply for. So again, for the sake of this class, I would like for you to learn a little more about terms and what discounts you can do, as well as applying credit memos. Okay. So then here I'm gonna go ahead and just pay them all off because I have $11,000 in my bank. I have plenty enough money to pay them off. Now, once I look at the check, so obviously I'm going to be writing 2 checks because they're not the same vendor. So, and they're for different amounts, okay? So here, I'm going to validate, make sure everything's correct, and make sure that it's going to come out of my checking account. And I'm going to go ahead and pay selected bills, okay? And I should get the beep of approval. Once that happens, a pop-up window is going to show you, hey, don't forget, you have these total checks written for you. Do you want to pay them now, or do you want to print them now, or do you want to be done with the transaction? I'm going to go ahead and be done with this transaction, okay? So I attempted to pay 2 bills and so on and so forth. Now, this is where I want to show you the difference. So this is how I think it was Anna that asked me the question. So this is what I'm going to be talking to you about. Okay? When you use a check to pay for an expense, okay, you're going to write a check, a random check, okay? So for the example, I wrote this random check for my I wrote this random check because I bought supplies, right? Right here from Bay Office Supplies. If they were a vendor to us and we have them on account, right? If we write a check for them, it wouldn't make any association to the bill that you've collected from them. So this is why I was kind of explaining to you is if you just write a regular check to attempt to pay for a bill, you're actually gonna QuickBooks will not recognize that check as if you were trying to pay a bill. Even if the same amounts match up, it's not going to associate it at all. Okay? The only proper way to reduce your accounts payable and to have QuickBooks recognize you to pay your bill is through the pay bill window. Okay? Does that make any sense? Okay? Okay, so I'm going to use that same example, right? That Ace Supply, right? I received a bill from Ace Supply, right, for $360. If I use the write a check and I wrote a check for $360, and then what's going to show up here is it's going to show up a check number saying it's to Ace Suppliers for $360. It would make no association to my actual bill. I have, you know what I mean? So it's basically, I just wrote a double check and I still owe this money because I didn't clear out my bill. I didn't reduce my accounts payable. So this is what I mean by when you look here, you can tell which transactions are actual paying off a bill, or whether you're paying something, whether you're doing a cash transaction, or you're just writing a simple check for an expense. Okay? Any questions about this in particular?
Nope.
Okay. So every time you enter a bill you're creating a liability. You're creating an accounts payable. So your duty to clear out that bill is to use the pay bills window. Okay? All right. So right now it is 11:04. I'm getting short on time here. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next portion. Now, the next portion is going to ask you to, I believe it's to print out your checks. Okay? So here, I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to, I can go to Print Forms, and here I can see that I can print my checks. Okay? That is one way. The other way is pretty straightforward. It's on the home page, and you have your print checks window right here. So I already went ahead and clicked it, and what I notice is my entire window will have all the checks that are still being wait to be waited to be printed. Okay. Now, when you print your checks, there's also a few things that you need to have in order to send these checks out. And the biggest one is you need a signature. So all of these, okay, if you're going to print out a check, that means you're going to go ahead and physically sign it yourself. But when we're dealing with QuickBooks, what you can do is you can actually have a photocopy of your signature, and when they print it, it will print out the actual signature on the check. So, in other words, it's another way of saying I verified it. Okay, so here we're going to look at all of our options to print all of these checks. So if you select with the little check mark here, as you can see on the left side, this will validate which check you are actually going to print. So in this case, I'm going to attempt to print all 3. Okay, so what's going to happen is now once you've done that, so I want to select all. So what's going to happen is I'm going to click OK. Then it's going to give me another window, okay? Because we're not ready yet. We need to make sure that we need to format it. We need to make sure that the paper that we buy, because when we are printing out our checks, right, you need to buy a special paper. I want to say the special paper is notarized, as in like it has that federal stamp, like in the background or something like that, or it's like some kind of format that it's not like a regular piece of paper. It is actually really different when you are printing out a check. And some places you can go straight to the bank and they can do it for you. Other places you may need special ink. I'm not quite too familiar with printing checks, but there are some places that do require you to have a special ink. I know for sure that you need a special piece of paper in order to print out these checks. Now you can choose, there are a couple ways you can print out the check, okay? A voucher format is going to be, you're going to print the check and you're going to print out the statement above it saying which bill that you're paying for. You can go ahead and click standard, which is like you can print multiple checks on one sheet, or you could do wallet size. Wallet size, it's like that really nice small bank slip. I don't know if you've seen it before. It's the one where you have to tear the perforated sides and you get this check, and it's like pretty much check size. It's a small piece of paper. It's not the long piece of paper. So you do have options on how you want to print your checks. So again, it's also dependent on which one that you buy. So if you bought the standardized one, that's fine. In this case, I just only want to print the checks. I'm not going to print the bill. There's no point. Actually, no, I changed my mind. I want to do vouchers. So I want to put the statement on there and exactly what I bought, and I'm going to attach the actual check right there. Now again, the most important thing about printing a check is you need to have a signature. So here, for some reason, you're supposed to be able to use your mouse and draw your signature here, but for some reason it won't allow me to do that. So, but that's okay. I have a file, and I'm going to go ahead and search it. So it's going to be in the same place that I put all my QuickBook files in. So when you actually download all these files, you will have this preset signature for you. So again, portable files, and I'm going to go to class copy files. And then if I scroll down, it should be right here. It's called SIG. I'm going to select that, and it's going to ask me this. So there's my signature. I have no idea who that is, but that's my signature. And I'm going to click OK. So that means every time it prints out, you're going to have the printed signature on the page. Okay, I can even attach a logo. Okay, so I want the logo, so I go here. Again, it should be the logo, should be in the same folder. I just saw the logo. I don't know where it is now. Oh, not that one. So it should be in here. I saw the logo earlier. It should be over here. So logo, boom. So this is, I'm gonna click OK. That's my company logo. And I'm gonna click OK. All right, so that's gonna print on the actual statement, not the actual check, okay? So you cannot customize your checks no matter how much you can. You can't alter it the way it looks. It's preset. You have to buy these at the bank. Okay, so there. I set all my stuff and I'm ready to print. And I can go ahead and click OK. Make sure that you have your printer set up. Make sure that you have the paper in the correct way. For in this case, I don't have a printer. I'm not at my home. I don't need to print these checks. So I'm just going to go ahead and click cancel. So I still will have these 3 checks pending, but for the sake of this class, yes, we do not have those options for us. All right. So that's what happens when you need to, you write all your checks. So we wrote a whole bunch of them. We saved it for our printer later. And then now we're going back and we can go ahead and say, I'm going to print these out and I'm going to start mailing them out. Okay? Any questions about checks? Okay.
No, that kind of explained my questions.
Okay. Perfect. Did you say it explained your questions or did you have questions?
No, it explained my questions.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back into the check register again. Okay, so again, I didn't print these. It still says to be printed, to be printed, to be printed. Okay, that is fine. We can ignore that for now because, again, we don't have the printer. So they are still in the printer. They're still being ready to go ahead and be shipped out. Now, the next part is going to ask me it's going to ask me to how I can void a check. Okay, so for this example, I'm going to go ahead and use Ace Suppliers. I don't even know which one they actually do, but I'm going to go ahead and say, oh crap, I didn't charge, or the bill that whatever. For example, I'm going to go ahead and use Wong and Son, right? Because their check is so overdue that if I write them a check, they're still going to bill me for my late fee. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I can do is, because this check is not there, what I can do is I can still click it and I can still void it. And see, I can go ahead and click this voided bill check. Okay, so what that does is it cancels my check for me right here. Okay. Yes. Okay, so here it's telling me it's still there. Let me see if I double click it. I don't know about you, but I voided it in my books, but it still appears here. Now, I guess this is a bad example to use, so I'm actually going to use a check that I wrote up here. So, for example, Ace Supply, right? I've already paid for them already. Let's just say this is...
You voided it, but you clicked on the wrong check. That's why it was showing that.
What do you mean I clicked on the wrong check?
You voided
This one.
Ace Supply. You
Oh,
voided
yes.
on Ace Supply.
Yes, there you go. Okay, good. Thank you. So if you were to look here, it should tell you that this check has been voided. Again, you're probably going to you're more likely to send a new one. So here, it said it cleared. Okay, so usually what's going to happen is if you void a check, it should actually say void at the top. In this case, because I think it's still being printed, it's not going to show you here, but it should say void at the top when we are dealing with those kind of checks, okay? So it should say void, but then again, I think as we
It says
actually...
void to the right of your cursor. In the middle section, it says void
Got
video
it.
production costs.
There you go. Thank you so much. So yes, it says void right here. So this means I stopped the check. I stopped it from printing, and I stopped from sending. Period. Okay, because I need to wait for them to send me a new bill statement because again, this bill was way overdue. It's like if I'm still in March right now, assuming I'm in March right now, that bill is way overdue. It's been overdue by a month. So they're going to charge me an additional fee for that. So what I can do is I can wait for the bill to come in and let me see my new revised check amount, and I'm going to write them a new check. Now, there are a few things that you can do that actually QuickBooks will also, or I'm sorry, that is not recommended to do. So as you can see, if I right click this, you can delete this transaction right here. Okay. Now, one thing that QuickBooks really highly recommends is you to not delete anything in your books because that can be a sign of fraud. Now, obviously, if you actually, for learning purposes, if you accidentally did something, deleting it, you can delete it just because you're trying to learn how to do it. But for the sake of anything, if you're doing this in the professional world, deleting is a no-no. Okay? Don't delete any checks. Don't clear out any information. Just find a way to correct that error. Okay? So for example, I don't want to delete this because they do actually put it in the box that the reason why they don't recommend you deleting this is because it's going to leave a gap in your checkbook. Okay, obviously I didn't print out this just yet, but if I were to print it out, it would have been check number 332. And if I were to delete this off my books, it's going to leave a hole in my checkbook. It's going to go from 331 to 333. And, that right there is like, well, what happened to check 332? Okay. Again, it's also very common that, let's say you do send a check, right? And the vendor has not received it. They're calling you about it, saying, where is my check? And you tell them you sent them out. But, maybe the person that was supposed to send it out left it in their drawer. What you can do is you can come in here and you can void it and just write them a new check. And generally, that is what should happen. You never want to write a check, and if the person never received it, it's also better for you to cancel that check and just send them a new one. Okay? But you also need to remember to void the check, because if you do not, and you send them the new check, what if they received both checks? They can put that in their deposit that into their bank, and they can double charge you. So there's a little ways of recommendations wise is to never delete any of your transactions, even if you're voiding a check. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's see what is next. Okay, so we voided our check, we wrote our check, and now we need to look at, we printed our check. Now we're going to be looking at how to apply vendor credits. Again, that will be your homework for tonight, just because I'm running out of time and I really want to show you a few reports as well as the bill tracker. And then the next one is entering credit card transactions, okay? So this one is pretty straightforward. It's similar to writing a check as far as this book goes. So again, instead of going to the write checks window, you can actually just go down here and enter a credit card transaction. Now, obviously, you can have as many credit cards as you want. Okay, so here you're going to make sure that you're going to choose the correct credit card, right? For example, I have a Chase credit card, I have a Citi credit card, I have a Bank of America credit card. You can have as many credit cards as you want. Okay, it's your business as long as, as long as those credit cards have the business name on it. Okay, so you can apply for any credit cards and utilize anything that you want. And it's pretty straightforward. If you need to produce or if you need to enter in any information when you're doing a credit card transaction, it's straightforward. You just fill in the information and then you could be done for the day. And just go ahead and click that. Now, the question is, once I do a credit card transaction, what's going to happen to that? So I'm going to do just a quick example. Hopefully I have time. I'm going to say I paid a supplies for some reason, okay? Or actually, let's go back to Bay again. I ran out of more printer paper. So I bought one ream of printed paper, and for the amount, I don't know, let's say it was $10.50. Oops, that's the account. So I'm going to do office supplies. Okay. And for the amount, let's say it was $10.85. Let's just say tax was included, okay? Memo, printer paper, okay? And when did I do this transaction? Okay, I'm gonna leave that, that's fine. And do you have a reference number for it? No, because you just went to the store. That is fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and click and save. And it's gonna ask you this question and I'm just gonna say save. You got the beep of approval. Great. Now, where in the world is my credit cards? Right? Where in the world am I gonna look at this? Like, so here I have a check register, right? Where do I look for my credit cards? Okay. So again, this is where you can either set it up this way. You can set it up on your icon bar. But in this case, it is actually going to be located in your chart of accounts. So remember your chart of accounts, right? All assets, all liabilities, and all equity have registers. So for example, I can go ahead and come here and I'm going to look up my credit card since it's a liability. I'm going to go ahead and double tap that, and what's going to happen is it's going to show me all my credit card transactions. So as you can see here, I just made a credit card transaction for $10.85, and this is exactly what where you can find your credit card statement here. Okay, and this is where you're going to also utilize it to reconcile, which we'll talk about in chapter 5. Okay, which is going to be in the next couple weeks. Okay, and yes, you can pay this bill off by writing either a check to your to the credit card company, or you can actually electronically transfer it and just type it in as a transaction. So that is for the credit cards. Okay. Again, I would encourage you to read more in depth about it because it does give you details about credit card transactions and how to pay them. So the next thing that I have time for is going to be looking at reports. So one thing that I didn't show you for the couple times is that the great thing about QuickBooks is you can create a lot of reports. Any reports on anything. So if you have purchase orders, you can run a report just to see what is available and what you purchased. You could do anything that has to do with any transaction that is involved. You can run a report on the sales that you have. You can run a report on how much your customers owe you. You can go ahead and run a report on even your bills, okay? So in this case, because we are focusing primarily on vendors and payables, we're going to go ahead and go under here, and we can see that you can look at the accounts payable, okay? You can see how much you owe them and run a report based on that, Okay, you can also see vendor balance details. So here I'm going to click that because that is actually one of the reports that is in the book. So each one is going to have a significance for each report. So in this one is just going to give you an idea of how much money you owe for each vendor, okay? And you can toggle it up here based on either all vendors or all dates, excuse me, for all dates. If I said today, no, there's nobody. Oh, except for Wong and Sun because that's overdue, right? If I say for all dates, so if I just want to do a monthly report, a quarterly report, so I'm doing the month of January all the way to March, I can see that I have all these bills, right? And I paid them. And then they're based on the vendor itself. So this is basically, in other words, a statement from each vendor, but summed up all together in a nice, convenient paper for you. And the great thing about this, you can print this out to keep as a record for you to file away whatever you want to do. Okay? And then you can also do it by date too. Okay, so that's one of the reports I want to show you for that one. Another one I want to show you is going to be called, I think it's, let me see, the transaction list. I believe it's that one. Okay, so again, we didn't really do many transactions, but I want to see all of them. So again, this is previous ones. So this is starting from January all the way to March. So of course, we never enter all these things in, but this is what the company has done ahead of time. So as you can see, this gives you a pretty much out view of all the transactions that have occurred based on the date, okay? So for here, I made a bill, I paid the bill, and it's also based on the vendor itself. So pretty cool. And then I forgot what the last report is. The last report I want to show you is going to be sales tax liability, okay? For that one, I also want you to read up upon that. There is a small section on how you can pay sales tax. So again, that is more for when we actually dive into chapter tomorrow, actually, when we actually start dealing with actual customers and we're actually collecting sales tax. Now, of course, to us, customers give us money to pay the government, okay? It's not the other way around, okay? So for us, it is a vendor to us because we owe them, we owe the government, we owe the state the money. So again, I will go more in detail with that. Probably, most likely, that is going to happen on Thursday because there's two sections. They're dealing with customers. So customers first, and then what you can do beyond that with customers, and that's going to be chapter 3. So again, I will go over that when we move on to chapter 3. Okay. Now the last thing I want to introduce to you is Bill Tracker. Now, Bill Tracker is to me the most easiest way to view all of your payables because here it will give you a list of all the bills that you owe. It will give you a quick synopsis of your current bills. And it will also give you a little update on how much bills you actually paid. So this is pretty much a really, really cool feature. I believe this is a new feature. It hasn't been it was introduced not too long ago. But this is to me a very useful feature to have because here every time you enter a bill, it's just going to give you a list of it right here. And it's going to also give you the dates and everything that's relevant to that bill. And it also gives you a way to kind of keep track of how you're doing with your bills, okay? So like obviously here, because we're dealing with 2018 stuff, you have a lot of things. You have $142 overdue, which is from the Sun and Wong, which is showed up right here. Okay, and so far we haven't paid anybody because we didn't send our checks out. But yes, so pretty cool. I'll show you this when we actually start accumulating, when we actually move on to a couple fewer things. So when we move on to tomorrow, which is going to be dealing with our customers, you can see, or actually inventory. Inventory is going to be where we're making a bunch of purchases. And when we do a bunch of purchases, we're going to be recognizing a lot of bills that will not be paid. So it will give you a better broad idea of how Bill Tracker works. And this is the secret way you can actually enter and pay your bills as well. So here they also do have a managed transaction, and here you can enter your bills. You can enter your purchase orders. You can pay via check or credit card charges. Pretty much you can do, this is the cool part. You can actually enter your bill and pay it with a check. Okay? And you can enter your purchase orders, right? Any way in order to create a liability. So that is the last part. Any questions to any of this stuff that you learned today? So I'm going to quickly go over the review questions, but do you guys have any questions about today's lesson or anything about vendors per se?
Not from my end.
Okay.
You answered my questions.
Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little sneak peek for tomorrow. Tomorrow, everything that you learn for vendors is going to be the same for customers. So again, if I were to go to my customer center, correct? We've already looked at this before. The customer center looks, if not more or less, identical to the vendor center. They function the same exact way, except this time we're not dealing with accounts payable, we're dealing with accounts receivable. The way you enter in customers and whatnot is identical. And yes, you can add multiple at a time. So again, chapter 2 will be a lot quicker and be a lot easier because we've already learned how to enter in a vendor. It's the same thing applying when we enter in a customer. Pretty straightforward. All right. So let's go ahead and go over the questions. So excuse me, I might make you guys dizzy by scrolling too quick. But I'm going to go ahead and scroll to page, I think it's page 40 if I'm not mistaken. I am mistaken. So let me see. Let me keep scrolling down. Review questions. Okay, perfect. Review questions. All right. So let's go ahead and answer these. So number 1. Okay, you may record payments to your vendors by A, recording a manual check, B, using the write a check feature, or C, use the enter bills to record accounts payable, or D, all of the above.
All of the above.
Correct. Yes. Yes, correct. All of the above is right. Okay. Number 2, okay, to display the vendor center. All right, you either click A, click vendors on the QuickBooks homepage. B, click vendors on the icon bar. C, you can either select vendor menu on the vendor center. Sorry. Or D, A, B, or C.
D.
Yes. These are the three ways you can enter in a transaction. Or I'm sorry, enter in information. Yes, these are the three ways you can get there. Okay, question number 3. You can add a vendor, A, only at the beginning of the period. B, only if you purchase over $600. C, at the beginning of the month, or D, at any time by selecting the new vendors.
D, at any time.
Yes, right. You can even quick add them. So that's how simple adding a vendor can be. So yes, that's correct. All right, number 4. Which of the statements is true? Okay. I don't know if you want to read this. A, QuickBooks records each bill payment in a bank account register or other account register, okay? B, bill payment increases the balance in both the checking account and the accounts payable account. Is that true?
No.
No, because checking, right, it doesn't increase. What does it do? It decreases. So already statement B is already false. C, you should assign jobs to all discounts taken. Is that true?
No.
No, that's opinion based because it says you should. And then D, you cannot make what does that say? Partial payments on a bill.
That's false.
Yes, it is false. You can make multiple payments, or you can make partial payments on a bill. That's correct. And then, so that leaves A is going to be our true answer, and that is true. That QuickBooks records each bill payment in a bank account. Okay? Yeah, that's true. All right, lastly, question number 5. Okay, question number 5 says, which QuickBooks feature allows you to separate your income and expenses by line of business, department, location, profit center. Okay, so is it A, job costing, B, class tracking, C, customer types, or D, vendor type?
B.
Yes, it's B. It's class. That's correct. All right. So thank you for hanging in there with me today. It is 11:40. Unfortunately, we did not have time to go over these examples, but that's fine because we are going to be going over chapter 2, which is going to be diving into customers. So it's pretty much similar. Like I said, everything that you learned for chapter 4, dealing with vendors, is going to be identical to entering in information for a customer. So that is it for today. Again, I thank you for being very patient with me